only at this center but also at the university, because for some time I came and taught monetary economics and macroeconomics for 3 summers and had a lovely time here. I'm very glad to be again here to help with the purpose of this university, which is the importance of freedom and the importance of economic freedom. Now today I'm going to look at Mandeville. He published in 1714 a book titled The Fable of the Bees, or Private Vices, Public Benefits. The subtitle is very important. And then comment or use the comments of Adam Smith and of Friedrich Hayek on this book, a book that was scandalous for the reasons you'll hear. I'll quote large pieces of it because it's such fun. His satire is greatly amusing. But the 2 criticisms, I think, will give us a different view of what Mandeville was at. His second edition, the second edition, that of 1723, brought the author an attempt to arraign him before the grand jury of Middlesex. Such was the scandal he caused. The book reproduced and explained the sheets of satiric verses that Mandeville had published anonymously in 1705 under the title The Grumbling Hive, or Knaves Turned Honest. And we can see the subtitle again is important. It means that once the knaves who made and helped the prosperity of the hive, once they became honest, the hive was done for. And this is what shocked people all the time then. The general opinion then and today is that his view of economic morality in a mercantile society is either an unacceptable portrayal or a shocking revelation of the true character of capitalism. So here we have this fable. He wrote other fables too. His fable, which has become famous because it's so well done, so well written, and so against our feelings. The doggerel verses that's broadcast by Mandeville were an ingenious satire of the moral justification of the bourgeois society current at the time, and also of today's morality of people who believe in bourgeois capitalism. The question is that he was understood as promoting vice, because vice was good for prosperity, and the prosperity of the hive was based on all the bad things that the individuals did, and there was the things they but those vices that they had made for the good of the whole society. Now today it's different. The way of seeing this fable is different. It's not that he was promoting vice, but that he was saying that the results of vice, which is freedom and prosperity and progress, are bad. So he's not saying that vice is good and we have to use it to promote riches, but the contrary. Since it's based on vice, riches and prosperity and capitalism are wrong, are somehow ethically unacceptable. And this is what is behind what we see today of Mandeville. How did the hive function? A hive that was prosperous, rich, powerful, defended of its enemies, and in fact even conquering countries outside. Well, the crimes, he said, conspired to make them great. The source of prosperity and power were not the values of the individual bees, because they were selfish and they were vain. And then he describes the kind of people going around in this hive, the kind of bees, as sharpers, parasites, pimps, players, pickpockets, coiners, quacks, soothsayers, and all those that in enmity were downright working cunningly to convert their own use of the labor or of their good-natured, heedless neighbor. So the way he described those bees were really not very commendable. By somehow this made for the riches of society. Hayek, I'm going to speak of later on, Hayek said this was a very important point, that the interests of the individuals sort of work together to make for the welfare of society. But it wasn't seen there at the time. What people thought was that he was promoting vice. And if he said that the riches of the hive depended on vice, then what he was saying is, let's be vicious, let's not be, let's try and not be honest or fulfill our contracts and do the right thing. Let's do the wrong thing, let's be vicious, because that makes for the wealth of society. Then these bees are in the beehive. At the same time, were not only selfish and not very moral, but also they were hypocrites. And those bees were hypocrites in the sense that they said, we lament the bad habits, the viciousness, the vices of our hive, and we need more virtue. We need to have less of the bad behavior of the bees, because though it makes us rich, it's not very commendable. So all the rogues cried brazenly, good gods, had we but more honesty. But Jove, with indignations moved, at last in anger swore, he'd rid the brawling hive of fraud, and did. But O ye gods, what consternation, how vast and sudden it was the alteration. Suddenly, when they gave up vice in this hive, suddenly honesty and trade agreed, prices would fall, everything would be cheap but plain, debts were repaid, justice hanged some, set others free, and retired, her presence no more required. Physics for doctors, skill only would prescribe. The clergy would be roused from laziness. The king's ministers would live only on their salaries, and no armed forces would be kept abroad. Then, when Jove put this in effect, they found that the hive was poor and didn't work as it did before. And so, what the description of the new poverty-stricken hive is, so few in the vast hive remain, the hundredth part they can't maintain. For it was not only that they went by whom vast sums were ready spent, but multitude that lived on them were daily forced to do the same. In vain to other trades they'd fly, and all were overstocked accordingly. So what you had was an increase in unemployment, people looking for new jobs, but the demand was not there, the activity was not there, and so in the end, what did the hive turn to? Then they would feed on acorns and have sheep in a sort of golden era. And this, in this golden age, may not have satisfied the bees, and certainly was a criticism of the activity that they had in that economy. So the question again is he promoting vice? Well, he was taken to the grand jury of Middlesex because he was promoting vice and had to defend himself in many essays that he wrote after the Grumbling Hyde. Was he promoting vice, or was he saying what we say today, many people say today, that the basis of free economy and capitalism are vice and dishonesty, cheating, and robbing other people from what is theirs? This is the question. So at the time it was interpreted, look, you're promoting vice. No, I think when you see today, it's the idea that our society, our free society, are immoral, and therefore we should give up the kind of activity, the kind of economic freedom that we have today. Now, is it right? What do we have to say to Mandeville? To Mandeville's today's thoughts. And I do that by asking the help of Adam Smith. Adam Smith is known generally as an economist, and somebody saying how an economy functions under freedom. But in fact, the book he published in 1776, which was The Wealth of Nations, was not his first book. The first book was in 1759, The Theory of Moral Sentiments. So here we have a defender of free trade and the free market being first a moralist. Therefore, this must mean that his defense of morality he didn't feel was contrary to what he defended in The Wealth of Nations. It is interesting to see that he revised the theory of moral sentiments time and again, and the last revision was 3 months before he died, when he published that. And therefore, he didn't revise The Wealth of Nations, he revised and studied and represented the ethics, the ethical theory. This must mean that, at least in his view, there was no contradiction between his ethics and the economic freedom and the freedom of the market. The Theory of Moral Sentiments is a very interesting book, and especially to the young students here among us, I suggest always that they should read it. Very well written, and what it says is something that we need to have in our present woke times, which is he gives a theory of how we people form our ethical beliefs, how it is that we humans in the end have, if we function well and we do it well, we have an ethic, a morality that is, he would then say, that is can be used by the market. So what the title is, The Theory of Moral Sentiments. He thought that those moral sentiments were created along the life of people and in societies slowly by an inclination and the passions of men, as his friend David Hume said. So he did write on Hume because in part 7 of the Theory of Moral Sentiments, Mandeville classified ethics, Smith classified the ethics of Mandeville among systems of philosophy, of moral philosophy, as one of the licentious moral philosophies. Two of these licentious philosophies, those of Epicurus and Seneca, he found redeeming features, either for encouragement of benevolence or for fortitude in difficult times. I'll quote, "There is another system which seems to take away altogether the distinction between vice and virtue. I mean the system of Dr. Mandeville. Though the notions of this author are in almost every respect erroneous, there are some appearances in human nature which seem at first sight to favor them." Mandeville was a psychiatrist in those times, and he specialized in people who felt sad or who had depressions, and also in something that is connected with depressions in the digestive apparatus. So he was a good doctor of the stomach and a good doctor also of the mind. And in his practice, he must have seen the way that we people are in a sort of negative, from a negative point of view, and therefore the kind of selfishness, hypocrisy, and so on he saw in his patients, he passed it on to his discussion of the mercantile system. So, what Adam Smith says, Mandeville considers that whatever is done from a regard of what is commendable is really done for vanity. Man, he observes, is naturally much more interested in his own happiness than in that of others, and it is impossible that in his heart he can ever really prefer their prosperity to his own. And this reminds us of economic man, and of the idea that to do some economics properly, we need to assume the complete selfishness of the individuals. This is not certainly what Adam Smith believed. He said, the notions that everything is vanity and everything is hypocrisy, that anything is vanity and anything is hypocrisy, is something which is a mistake, is erroneous. Man, Mandeville observes, is naturally much more interested in his own happiness than in that of others. And Mandeville said it's impossible that in his heart he can ever really prefer the prosperity to his own. Adam Smith thought these notions were exaggerated. And quote, "It is the great fallacy of Dr. Mandeville, this book, to represent every passion as wholly vicious. It is thus that he treats everything as vanity, which has any reference either to what we are or to what we ought to be and to the sentiments of others. It is by means of this sophistry that he establishes his favorite conclusion that private vices are public benefits." Now, I think that Adam Smith got it somehow wrong. Mandeville was defending really the public benefits and thought that the hive should prosper. And when he said this was based on vice and lack of virtue, he wasn't saying that the public benefits came from lack of virtue, and that the best way to defend the system was to foster unethical behavior. So he got the things wrong, or at least we see it here from this point. We see that today people say that the market economy is immoral, and rather than, as Mandeville's contemporaries thought, saying that is something that imposes or fosters viciousness and vice, what Mandeville was saying is that really was attacking the system. And the end, when when Jupiter decided to take away vice, what they had was a society with less employment, who lived on acorns, as he says, and who was smaller in numbers and weaker in force. So it isn't so much that that Adam Smith thought that Mandeville was fostering vice, as that he didn't understand that what Mandeville was saying and what people now today see is the immorality, fundamental immorality of the mercantile society. Now, so the first criticism I make, or the first way I criticize Mandeville, is by saying, in part with Adam Smith, that it isn't that vice fosters riches, and it isn't that riches is therefore wrong, but that we people are mixed when we are not so proper as we should be, but also that the mercantile system is a system that creates wealth not from vices. You shouldn't criticize that system from the point of view that it's immoral. So one criticism of Mandeville and of Smith is to say, don't careful if you think that that a mercantile society is immoral. It isn't so, though I've been ingenious and clever in presenting the fable that it seems to be so. The other criticism that we have in Mandeville comes from Hayek. Fritz Hayek says that the point that Hayek was trying to make was that Mandeville should not be seen as a philosopher of ethics, but as an analyzer of spontaneous order in society. So Hayek sets aside the ingeniousness of the fable and the shocking things that Mandeville says to call the attention of his readers. He says that Mandeville was somehow one of the first economists and the first thinkers who started to understand the system of spontaneous order in society, and that he should be seen as an economist who said that somehow the interests of everybody, be they vicious or not, get together in a harmony, which is another thing. So we should say, no, Mandeville is not saying that the system is immoral in itself, and Mandeville really is interested in something else, which is a great step forward in economic theory, that there is spontaneous order. In the fable of the bees, in the 1714 edition, Mandeville says, "And virtue, who from politics has learnt 1,000 cunning tricks, was by their happy influence, by those tricks, made friends with vice. And ever since the worst of all the multitude did something for the common good." Here we are. It's the idea that the common good flows from the interests and actions of individuals, be they moral or not. This was the state's craft that maintained the whole of which each part complained. This, as in music harmony, made jarrings in the main agree. Parties directly opposite assist each other, as it were, from spite. So, what Smith said about Mandeville was that he went too far in promoting vice, perhaps, and that we we don't need that point of view, we don't understand Mandeville that way. And the second one is that he made a big step in the economic understanding of society. So, along his last years, when many writings in prose that Mandeville published, he proposed almost unknowingly the idea that human institutions, such as language, law, morals, the market, money, develop with nobody designing them or planning them. This all-important idea, says Hayek, was then taken up by the Scottish philosophers. This idea is famously summarized in Adam Ferguson's dictum, that we repeat time and again, because it's so right. Nations stumble upon establishments which are indeed the result of human action, but not the execution of any human design. So Hayek and Smith are redeeming Mandeville from the aspersion that he was in fact in favor of vice, and that he liked this contradiction, or he presented this contradiction between the prosperity of society and the well-behavior of their members. And then secondly, that his great proposal was to understand that the free market was based on immorality. No, Mandeville was one of the first thinkers who proposed this spontaneous order that Hayek would then present. So the idea of spontaneous order of societies goes much further than Mandeville and the Scots took it, as we've just seen. This idea of spontaneous order changes our view of the formation of social values and their clashes. The sources of human values are not two, nature and reason, but three, nature, reason, and cultural evolution, as Mandeville started to see. And one only need read the three sources of human values in the epilogue of Hayek's Volume 3 of Law, Legislation and Liberty, and to understand what Mandeville's main contribution was. So thus was political economy freed from the aspersions of Mandeville and taken a big step forward.